seriously. It's pretty, like, here's the thing about it too, like, I like to rant and rave about this stuff. It's funny, it's hilarious, it's really sad on one end, but here's the thing about it is that there's a duality in our world going on, right? So on one end, it's like you got the conventional discourse is just like when you're dealing with someone who might have diabetes. I love this example. This is the best example ever. Like, you have someone who has diabetes, they go into the doctor's office, they say, oh, we don't, there's nothing we can do, your blood sugar's out the roof, and without even giving, like, hey, maybe you should try to eat some vegetables, maybe you should stop eating some of those, like, refined carbohydrates or the pizza or whatever is causing the glucose backup in your blood. Instead, like, no, they don't even go there. That's not even a thought. It's just like, okay, you need insulin, you need medication, we'll get onto it. Here, sign on the dotted line. That's one end. On the other side of it, you can go to any one of these healing retreats, like Dr. Gabriel Cousins. You can go hop on a plane or drive in your car to Patagonia, Arizona, and 2, 3, maybe 4 weeks, diabetes type 2, gone? Really? So, wait a minute. Wait a minute. I thought the people that we entrusted in the white lab coats that get their lunch out of the vending machine, that are trying to figure out, like, the questions to the universe, like, they're trying to crack the code to the universe, right? They're not going to crack anything, by the way, under those circumstances, right? If you're feeding yourself food that's not even food, good luck, right? Anyways, so this is the message that we're getting our whole life, right? The programming, it's so deeply ingrained in us. But then you flip over to this side, it's like, yeah, 2, 3 weeks, blood sugar stabilized on an all raw food diet, juice fasting, even a little bit, I know Gabriel Cousins even incorporated a little bit of like chocolate making classes, right? What's this whole thing? Oh, chocolate causes blood sugar spikes. No, it doesn't. If your reference point for chocolate is the milk powdered filler, roasted, toasted, roasted cacao beans, right, with the refined sugar and all the other additives, then yeah, that stuff's going to spike your blood sugar out the window. But that's not what chocolate is. So we got confused, right, by all these industries. They kind of tricked us into thinking something that was once sacred, right, a sacred ceremonial food that was used as a medicine for literally 13,000 years. We got confused and got, oh, it's poison, okay. We're not going to do that, except that we're going to do it behind closed doors when no one's looking, with guilt, fear, shame inside of us, right? He's teaching people how to do it without the sugar, without all these other additives, with cacao. By the way, that's, if you don't know, that's what chocolate comes from. It's the seed of a fruit, cacao. And it's the most nutrient-dense food on the planet. That's a fact. It's the most chemically complex food on the planet. There's no food that has as much chemical makeup as that food. And they found out, here's another good idea about food I just want to throw out there, is that we haven't even figured out the whole food puzzle. You know, we got scientists like, okay, the tomato, it's got lycopene in it, okay, well, it looks like you need to cook that tomato to get the lycopene out. Like this. So we don't even actually know what food is. Like, we think we got a grasp on the apple, right? We know what the apple is, the pectin. We know the malic acid. We know everything there is to know about an apple. No, you don't. In cacao, they know there's 1,200 known chemical constituents. They could only identify 400 of them. But they know that there's this other huge bulk of them. They're just not quite sure what it is. Does that make sense? So that's why, as a general approach to nutrition, I like food, because food is complete. And hey, we don't know everything about food, but who cares? Because you're still going to get it when you eat it. Does that make sense? Right? And the whole kind of like synthesizing, chemicalizing, everything, right? Better living through chemistry. I'm not so sure about that anymore. I'm kind of a result-orientated type of guy. I don't know about anyone else, but I like to, after a while of doing things, I kind of want to see some results. And we've kind of seen where that has led us, right? So now we're coming back to this reality, and for a lot of you, I'm just kind of like speaking the Holy Gospel, I'm sure. I promise this is going somewhere. but we're coming to this reality as not just individually among us in our niche, in maybe our family, but not as a nation, but as a global community. We're coming to this idea that the way we look at food, our relationship with food, how that relationship affects our other relationships with other people, we're getting really honest about these things. I think that's a beautiful thing. And it's starting to matriculate, it's starting to proliferate out into the mainstream. And I'm actually really excited about something that just showed up. And I'm doing an East Coast tour. And after this week, I'm going to be going to Connecticut. I'm going to be touring around there. And then I'm going into New Jersey, into New York. And I got a call from my agent. She said, yeah, I'm talking to these TV show producers, and apparently they want to meet you. Like, TV? Like, I didn't even think about TV unless they threw me onto one of these, like, funny reality shows. And, like, I had to be some kind of, like, you know, raw food dude or something. I don't know. But I never thought about TV. And then she's like, yeah, that's your Trojan horse. Like, oh, that's interesting. Okay, that's an interesting way of looking at it, you know. And it's getting out into the mainstream. It's beautiful. So I want to bring back to an original point that I wanted to touch on more, and that was neurology. So the neurodegeneration that we're seeing in our world. You know, every one of us has an intimate experience with this. I guarantee it. We all know somebody, whether it's a friend, a relative, a family member, that is breaking down. Right? We all see it. Now, they give words to like schizophrenia, multiple sclerosis, Alzheimer's, any of these palsy. Basically, what all these are, I've kind of come down to the conclusion, these are all nervous system breakdowns. Okay, these are all breakdowns of our nervous system. And this is really important to understand. If you don't get anything else out of this talk, understand this one concept. This is where I put my magnifying glass on right here. Is how do we develop a hyperconductive nervous system? How do we protect the hyper-electrical freeway that's conducting electrical transfers of information packets from neuron to neuron that travel up and throughout all our nerve fibers up into our brain? Right? How am I doing this? Hello? How is this possible? It's because my brain sends an instant transmission to my muscle tissue, and I'm able to do this without even thinking about it. That's totally amazing. Everyone just like do this for a second. This is totally amazing. I've always wondered, so when I was a little kid, by the way, I wondered. I was like, I'm not thinking about it, but it's moving. What's going on? Right? That's something I was always curious about. The human body is amazing, and our nervous system is the crux of the matter. And I'm so surprised that people don't talk about this more. Actually, everyone, like I've ranted and raved about, like everyone's obsessed about like the macronutrient equation. Like how do we create this kind of like equation with like our different fats, proteins, and carbs? When in reality, that's like the bulk of our food, but that's just like one area of the nutrition puzzle. That's not equating for enzymatic capacity, probiotics like I mentioned before. That's not equating for antioxidants like antioxidation. Right? Minerals. That's huge. Minerals, trace minerals, the whole gamut of like all these little constituents that we give these names to. Basically, they're all firing they're basically firing in the body to allow electrical circuitry to take place. Now, who's aware that your body is actually being run on electricity?
Oh, yeah.
Right? Like I said, we're not chemical beings. Yeah, we produce chemicals, but that's not what I'm talking about. Right? And you know all these like pills, like the pharmaceuticals, you know what those are made out of, right? At least 80% of them? Petroleum. Petroleum's in them, for sure. But it's actually a plant constituent. Now, the way these companies actually go about making these medications is that they'll identify, let's say, like a plant in the Amazon. And they'll find out, like, okay, this plant has been used historically, and they're using, like, shamans are using this plant. We're going to go in there, we're going to get that plant, we're going to put it under scientific analysis. We are going to find the active constituent or the active alkaloid in that plant. And when we do, we're going to extract it out, we're going to concentrate it and chemicalize it. Now, that sounds decent in theory, but the problem is there's no cofactors to actually make that chemical that they identified work in the human body, right? And it's kind of my opinion that there's no actual intention to make it work. But that's, that's after the movie. So yeah, back to the nervous system. So what I love about raw food and what makes it so important moving into the future is that it's electrically conductive. Right? Is anyone here familiar with Kirlian photography? Okay. And then, so basically, I wish I had a better picture of it. I have my book here, and there's a picture in there. But basically, if you look up online, you go to Kirlian photography, you will see tons of images of food specifically that's been photographed through a Kirlian camera. And this camera was actually developed by a man named Samuel Kirlian in the 1930s. And it actually is it shows you the electrical magnetic energy that's permeating off all living things. And you could travel down all the different scientific discoveries, like I'm thinking of Fritz Albert Popp. Fritz Albert Popp in the 1960s, I believe, he was the man who identified that within every single cell, there is an energetic output coming out of the cell, right, of every single living organism. So whether you're an animal, you're a human, which is an animal, or you're a plant, or different conductive material. Well, that's kind of a different example. That's more Kirlian. But anyways, every living cell has this energy coming out of it, right? And now we know through like cellular mechanics that our cells, the DNA, is actually encoded by a level of water molecules. Okay, you following me? Now, once those water molecules start to degrade or dehydrate, they break down, and then that dehydration reaches the cell, and it starts to, what's the word? Atrophy. Great, perfect word. It starts to atrophy, right? And we see this because when you're born as a baby, you're like 90% water. Okay? Fast forward 70 years. As a general concept, when you reach about 70, you might be 30% water, 20% water, and you see this in skin, right? A baby. What's the most talked about thing of a baby? Like their smooth skin, right? Well, it's because it's hydrated. It's moist, right? It has water. When you dehydrate yourself over a long duration of time, your skin starts to shrivel up. You start to see varicose veins, right? You start to see the highway, right? And so just to bridge that concept for you, how important it is to be hydrated. Now going back to raw food, the thing about it is that it's hydrating because it has water, water-rich food, water-rich food, especially water-rich fruit with seeds.